Hey guys, it's Grade. I got another video for you. I'm going to be comparing the Gemling Legoinnaire and the Infernalist to see who's the better class for a minion build. But first, another 10 seconds of begging. Hey, if you guys like the content, you like the videos, help me out. Give me a sub. We're almost monetized. I'm like 300 away. But anyway, yeah, so long story short, it's the Witch all day. The Witch all day for reasons I'm going to discuss for in the video. Yeah, just more spirit, more damaging minions because of the Ascendancy passive skill, passive Ascendancy nodes, right? And the passive skill tree points at the starting point for the Witch. It gives you a bunch of extra DPS that the Gemling Legoinnaire doesn't have access to, and then also a bunch of spirit. So I'll go into it. We're going to cover the gear. We're going to go over the passive skill tree, and then the DPS capabilities of each, the defensive capabilities of each, and how, depending on how you structure your passive tree, you can really emulate either or. But when it comes down to it, like when you're counting those pennies, it's the spirit, dude. It's the spirit. You just have more options with the Infernalist. And yeah, enjoy. Check it out. Here's a side-by-side of the gears between the Infernalist and the Gemling. You can see they're exactly the same. The only difference is there's a Ghost Wraith on the Gemling, and you don't have to gear for CI. So the advantage for the Gemling is when it comes to gear, it is a little bit less. Not by very much, just a little bit. But all the other stuff is the same, like gear-wise. It is easier to gear out just because of the Ghost Wraith. That's it. Other than that, all the gear is exactly the same. So as far as gear is concerned, there's not much. Maybe in the early game, it's maybe easier because the Ghost Wraiths are more available and you can get more ES. But as you'll see later in the defenses, because the Infernalist has all that extra DPS on the minions, it allows you to allocate more points towards Energy Shield to have like an equivalent amount of EHP. Versus the ES on the Gemling Legoinnaire. You have 20k ES easy with this guy, but you could also have effective EHP health pool of 20k also with the Infernalist, because 15k energy shield is easy with the Infernalist. And then combine that with the extra 30%, around 35%-ish increased EHP because of Altered Flesh and the dog. It basically puts you right around 20k anyway. Same deal. So as far as gear, very close. Maybe just edges out a little bit on currency just because of not having the gear for CI. Here's the passive tree for the Infernalist. Now these initial nodes for the starting off points for the Witch, all of those, the spell damage, increased damage, all of these, because the Witch, this is Witch specific. The Gemling Legoinnaire can't path this way and get those same nodes. So these nodes right here, because of those, it makes the Infernalist minions do quite a bit more extra damage, like 30% extra damage per skeleton. Like I tested this, I was wondering why. I was like, I couldn't figure out why. Where's all this damage coming from for the Infernalist? And then I looked back at it, I was talking to a friend, and it's because those initial starting nodes, because of those. So because it has that extra DPS down here, it allows you to unallocate damage nodes like these right here, and then go into Energy Shield if you wanted to. So although the Gemling Legoinnaire has a lot of ES, if you balance the DPS per DPS between the classes and had the same DPS per skeleton on the Infernalist, you can reallocate these damage nodes for minion damage and get Energy Shield. Like this little section right here of crit chance, you could unallocate these and put Energy Shield if you really wanted Energy Shield, and you would have the same DPS as the Gemling Legoinnaire. And your minions will also be one level lower, which is crazy. So these initial nodes down here, they provide a lot of DPS. These wheels and stuff. So even on the Gemling, the interesting thing on the Gemling passive skill tree is there's one extra jewel socket, and it's still not as much damage as my Infernalist that it's capable of pushing out. So the other thing too with damage, right? Do you really need that much damage? So when we do a side-by-side with Xesht, you're going to see that, 10 mil versus 7 mil, there's not that big of a difference. So here's the Gemling Legoinnaire passive tree. Right here's the ascendancies. You're taking this thing for increased intelligence to give you more ES for your Ghost Wraith. And then there's this +1 level of all skills. So this is pretty nice. It's nice to get level 40 minions, but it's a little interesting because the Gemling Legoinnaire, these initial nodes, right? It doesn't have, compared to the Witch, those minion damage nodes. And those minion damage nodes make a huge difference. Like a huge difference for the Witch. It's comparable to this minion level +1 all skills this one level does not give the equivalent of the damage nodes that these ones give. Now, I will say you will get life, accuracy, so that's nice. But how I have it with my witch Infernalist, they're level 39, so that one level difference makes no difference, really. It is nice being able to slot Splinter, though, for extra armor break. So this is how I have it pathed. Just to compete with the Infernalist damage, I have to take these nodes, and then I path this way. This is very similar to how Oscrix has his passive tree. And then just to get the maximum amount of energy shield nodes that I can get. And then I can't even take these energy shield nodes. Because if I take these energy shield nodes to have 20k ES, like if I take these and I take these over here, the DPS for the minions will suffer. They'll go down. It won't be anywhere near as high as the Infernalist. So for me to compete with the Infernalist minion DPS, I actually have to take these ones, all these guys on the side. I have to lose points in energy shield. So you can kind of see in the comparison of the two passive trees between the two classes, it's just this balancing act of if you want to copy the Infernalist's DPS, you're going to lose energy shield. If the Infernalist wants to copy the defensive capabilities of the Gemling, the minions are going to lose DPS. So they're kind of similar in that regard, where they can copy each other's milestones for DPS and energy shield. The big difference comes from Baitit's Will giving you the extra spirit, which I'll probably talk about a bunch of times throughout this video, allowing you to use blink and just better quality of life and mobility for mapping is where it comes down to the really big like differences. So this is the passive tree for the Gemling. Have it going this way, that way. If you're playing a Gemling, you can copy something similar to this, and then you can just change on however you feel is more important. If you need more energy shield and you need more survivability, you can unallocate some attack nodes and get energy shield points. There and here. Or even here. The other thing too with the Gemling is I'm sacrificing a lot of minion survivability. I'm not taking Vile Mending in this one. And all those other things, just because I'm trying to balance out minion damage to try to be similar and competitive in minion damage with the Infernalist. So let's talk about defenses for the Witch, right? So with the Gemling Legionnaire, you can have like 20k ES. You can have a lot of ES, but it's at the cost of your DPS for your minions, right? Because on the Gemling Legionnaire, in the build that I made for them to have high DPS, I took a lot of these nodes. I took a lot of these nodes out. I had to pump into like, you know, down here. I had to take these guys on the Gemling Legionnaire. A lot of nodes I had to take out in order to, a lot of defensive nodes I took out in order to spec for damage nodes on the Gemling Legionnaire. And since the Infernalist has just higher minion damage, I could just unspec nodes from my passive tree on my Infernalist, like these ones, the critical hit damage bonuses, these ones, and I can just spec into energy shield here, energy shield here. I still have more nodes of energy shield I could put too if I got rid of these. And look at my energy shield on my Infernalist. It's at 7k. I could probably push this to 8k, being really similar to the Gemling Legionnaire. And then the total ES, or the effective HP, is also just as high because I have the dog, right? The dog is taking 20%, absorbing 20% of all damage incoming. And you might say like, oh, what if the dog dies or whatever? Bro, dude, at this level, the dog doesn't die. This guy's immortal. Look at how much health this dog has. Where is it? Where's the health on this guy? He has 19k health. This guy has a lot of health. He's super tanky. He's got, look at his resistances are high. I've never had this guy die. Maybe when you're leveling, he'll die and stuff like that, but we're talking like endgame stuff. It's pretty good. And then Altered Flesh on top of that with the Altered Flesh. If you're, I did the math for it, right? One hit does 100 damage. The dog takes 20%. And then another 20% is, you know, your resistances take out 75%. It comes out to roughly 68%. 100 points of damage becomes 68%. 68 points of damage. And it's basically the same tankability as the Gemling Legionnaire. So when it comes to defense, they're pretty much tied. Like, you can have a high number of ES too with the Infernalist. And then plus all the damage mitigation, it's exactly the same as the Gemling Legionnaire. You're basically slicing hairs. You're slicing hairs. So when it comes to defenses for Gemling Legionnaire and Infernalist, you really just got to pick your poison. I still think in this edge, though, that the Infernalist is more flexible because it's easier for the Infernalist to get more spirit And it's a lot easier for the Infernalists to have their minions do more DPS just because of these nodes right here. These extra nodes make a huge difference. So there's more flexibility with the Infernalist when it comes to defenses. You could push this. I could take these energy shield nodes. I still have one over here, but there's these nodes too I could take if I decided to like remove these ones. If I decided to remove these, because then you could say that if you look at the DPS for my skeletal snipers, they're at 72k. 72k, and the Gemling Legionnaire buffed for DPS, right? Setting the Gemling Legionnaire for full DPS, I was having them do 76k unbuffed, so the DPS is the same. Energy shield is the same. This is about the same stats as the Gemling Legionnaire, only the major difference is I've got tons of more minions. I have tons more minions, and I have blink. So, you know, just to reinforce the fact that because I play like this, and you have more minions, there's more flexibility with the Witch. Not to say that Gemling Legionnaire is bad. The Gemling Legionnaire does have a great advantage with that +1 to get you to level 40 for your skeletal snipers. So that way when you boss, you can actually take fork out and you can put Splinter in here. So immediate damage break. Immediate damage break, which is really nice quality of life for the Gemling Legionnaire. Now on the flip side, with my Infernalist, I could do something very similar. All I have to do is I can get another sniper jewel, right? I can slot these guys in, and then I could put Splinter, Corrosion, and everything on the secondary sniper jewel, and I can have 4 of those guys breaking armor. So if I put this over here, Demolisher, right? I'll show you a real quick trick. Put this in here. And then I could put it in Venom. I could put in Corrosion. And then this Fire Mastery, right? So look, we can separate this out. I can have 3 of these guys breaking armor. These level 38 skeletons right here. I can have 3 of these guys, and they're doing 22k DPS, right? So it basically becomes the same when it comes to armor breaking for single target. I can have these guys armor breaking single target bosses, so that way I don't need to use vulnerability. So in a way, that quality of life that the Gemling Legionnaire has, you can also cancel out. So what am I actually saying? They're very similar. They're very similar, but I still think the edge goes to the Infernalist because of the sheer amount of spirit that you can have. So let's talk about spirit with the Gemling. If you look at it right here, I have 520 spirit. That's a lot less than my Infernalist with the same gear, right? All due to the fact that it doesn't have spirit on the chest because you're using the Ghost Wraith. And then Baitit's Will, right? Giving you that extra reservation for the extra spirit. Now you might be asking yourself, what if we just don't use the Chaos chest? What if we just use a regular spirit chest? Well, the whole point of you using the Ghost Wraith is so that way you can have this massive amount of energy shield. So if you decide to forfeit using the Ghost Wraith, you basically lose the advantage of all the tankiness of being the Gemling Legionnaire, which is basically the big whole selling point of playing a Gemling Legionnaire, is because you have this large amount of effective HP with tons of energy shield. So it's kind of moot to play the Gemling if you're gonna take this off and you're gonna just put on a normal energy shield, have like, you know, 14k energy shield. You could do that, but even then, even still, if you look at the DPS of the skeletal snipers, these guys are level 40, right? Their basic attack is only 77 compared to, you know, the 90 that's on the Infernalist, all because of those extra points. And then, so if you look at it, that's a whole 100, what is that, 160 spirit missing. So because of that, you know, with the way I like to play, I like to use the leap and blink. I only have 21 snipers versus the 27. And there's not enough spirit to get an extra sniper. So you could say, oh, well, maybe you don't need blink. You still only have 24, right? And then you could say to yourself, well, I'm just going to play with this. You're going to use the boots. And you'd have 33 snipers. But if you're like, you know, if you're like me, see, if you have blink on, If you want to use the leap and blink, you only have 29 snipers. That's only 2 more snipers than the Infernalist. And at the cost of having this like really disgustingly slow move speed. Some people can hack it, can stomach it, you know, play with this like really gimped move speed. I can't do it. Especially mapping around, you know, long extended playthroughs, having to double back when you know, a minion freaking monster spawns on the other side of the map that you missed. It makes me hate it. It makes me hate playing this game moving so slow. I talk about it a lot, but I mean, if you could stomach it, sure, that's cool, that's fine. But to me, there's really no need to suffer through this. There's no need to suffer through this because you have the same amount of tankability with the Infernalist and even more DPS. It's easier and more attainable. I could be wrong because I'm not running the... Maybe there's a difference using the... I see some other popular like TIE players and stuff, they use the Adorned to get a bunch of attack speed and like, you know, corrupted blue jewels. To me, that's not that efficient use of currency. I mean, I don't have it though, so maybe they know something that I don't. But you're losing so many other stats on using a blue sapphire jewel. You know, like look, I have energy shield, and you also have increased damage instead of just attack speed. But I'm also rolling a crit build, and I think crit is far superior to attack speed. When I was doing my testing, in my testing on the other video, crit is far superior. Like you basically kill the boss in 4 shots. Kill Xesht in 4 shots. Whether you're the Infernalist or the Gemling Legoinnaire. Even though I'm trying to find reasons to want to go for the Gemling Legoinnaire, I can't really think of any. Everything is kind of like, you know, there's really no reason to really play it. I'm trying to find good reasons to want to play the Gemling Legoinnaire, because I did level 1. I leveled 1, I saw it, I thought it was cool, but I noticed that I was dying without having any frontline melee minions or dogs or anything like that. So I switched back to my witch, and that was the correct choice. So let's talk about the witch, the better one of the 2 classes, and it's going to be the sheer amount of spirit that you can gain. Now, why is that, right? It's simply because of this. It's the way the build for the gear on the Gemling. The chest for the Gemling is the Ghost Wraith. So you lose all the spirit that you'll have on the chest. So my chest is 54. Pretty decent roll. I have an energy shield chest so I can, you know, match the defensive capabilities. Have high energy shield. You can even get the other chest too, the Expert Shaman Mantle, to have even more spirit. Have like 80 spirit on the chest. And that's a lot. So what I have right here is 54 spirit with the chest piece. And then along with Baitit's Will... Let me see. Let's calculate how much Baitit's Will is giving me. I have 1849 life. Divide that by 2, right? Half your life. Divide that by 25. 37 points. So 37 plus 54. I'm getting 90 spirit. But that's not all, right? Because I'm also running Grand Spectrum Jewels. The Grand Spectrum Jewel gives you 16%. So that plus, what was it? 90s, let's say 96. 110 extra spirit. That's a lot. That is a lot. That's a lot of spirit that the Gemling Legoinnaire has no access to. The Gemling Legoinnaire doesn't have any access to it. You can get more spirit with the Gemling by filling out these points. You know, all these other nodes right here with the Against the Darkness. But it's all stuff that the Infernalist also has access to. So no matter what gear set, combination, your Infernalist will always have more spirit. And because of that, it allows you to do things like have blink, you know, other things that you can do. And with that amount of spirit, because you have so much spirit, that means more skeletons, more damage. And I covered what I think about damage, right? You only need so much damage, even to beat Simulacrum, even to beat pinnacle bosses. The only time I would think, you know, you'd want more than 10 million, which is what I can push on an Infernalist, is if you're trying to kill Arbiter +4. But that's why I think the Infernalist is the better choice of the 2. It's just more flexibility, whatever you're trying to do. And with the way I have it set up, I mean, it's perfect. If you want the most skeletons that I can have that are hard hitting with as much DPS as I can get, and we're doing some bossing, take all this stuff out, you know, pushing 41 skeletons. This is 41 skeletons, each doing almost 250, right? 245. 244k DPS, 40 of them. That's a lot. So with the Gemling, you can't even push 244 DPS. You know, it can't get that high. But with the Gemling, you also have that nice little bit of survivability, which is good. You know, I don't know what to say. I feel like, not to throw any shade at the people who like the Gemling. The Gemling's good. It has its uses. It's really good if you're trying to, you know, have currency. It's better for currency. I don't know, maybe slightly better. But if you're gonna play a minion build, I think it's better to play the skinny satanic worshipping chick. unless you just specifically would want to play, you know, a mercenary or something. There's really no need. I can't think of a thing that it would offer playing the mercenary that I couldn't try to emulate on the witch. If I wanted more survivability, I can have just as much, you know, energy shield. I would have more spirit. I'd have more DPS. Yeah, I just don't know. And then if I wanted to, I could always switch to a Queen of the Forest build. You know what I mean? I could do other things that are minion related. But yeah, you'll see. I'm gonna put up some videos of Xesht DPS. Right? There's really no difference side by side killing Xesht. The performance in Simulacrum +4, literally no difference. The biggest difference is, like what I was talking about, is quality of life when it comes to clearing and movement and mapping. Because you're able to have so much spirit and you have so many options with blink and all this other stuff, that alone makes the witch the preferred choice. Because, you know, survivability and all that stuff is all the same. Damage, all the same. Like, yeah, you can get more damage, you know, but more damage for no reason. More DPS for no reason. But there's a clear distinction is more spirit. And the most spirit you can get is going to be on the witch.